Hey Rotary Swing golfers, welcome back. I'm your instructor Chris Tyler, and we're going to talk about consistency. That's one of those big areas that all the golfers that come to the website really want to become a more consistent golfer. Well, I got great news for you today. We're going to be starting a brand new 6-week program that's going to help you walk through step by step on how to become a more consistent ball striker. So if you've been struggling with fat shots, thin shots, erratic ball striking, hitting it all over the golf course, you want to pay close attention to this video series because, again, I'm going to guarantee your success if you follow along with this program over the next 6 weeks. Okay, time to get excited. Here we are at week number 1 of becoming a more consistent ball striker or a more consistent player in general. And our goal over these next 7 days is to eliminate a lot of your excess head movement. So if you've noticed yourself on camera and you take away your backswing and you've noticed that your head is moving too far off the golf ball, or you've even noticed that it moves towards the target while you're loading your golf swing up, then this video for the next 7 days is going to be really, really critical for you, because at the end of this, I'm going to give you a drill that's going to be really important that you spend time going through the reps, making sure that you get this perfect before we start to move on to the next step. Okay, so let's take a step back here and understand why it's important for us to keep our head quiet in the golf swing. Well, as part of the vestibular process, the way our eyes process information, if our eyes and our head are moving all over the place, it's very difficult for us to get things lined back up at the bottom of the swing arc. So we want to keep our head, which we would consider more of a centered piece of our body here, we want to keep that as quiet as humanly possible so that we don't have a lot of these other variables, a lot of big moving parts that are going to make it very difficult for us to get this club head lined up with that golf ball. We would all look at this game and say, man, that requires a ton of hand-eye coordination. And I do agree there is a little bit of hand-eye coordination to it. But again, we can make it way easier on ourselves just by stabilizing our head. Now, I will also say this. It is okay when you load up your golf swing for the head to move an inch, inch and a half or so laterally. We want that to happen. We need that to happen. If it didn't, if you tried to keep your head deadlocked still, okay, so if you made a golf swing where you're trying to keep your head really still over the golf ball, then chances are you're going to run into a reverse pivot, and that's very common with a lot of amateur golfers that we work with. So again, it's okay for your head to move an inch, inch and a half or so, especially when we start to get into the drill portion of this video. Okay, so before we get into the drill portion here, I want to go ahead and define some of these faults, what's causing them, so that you understand what you need to work through or why you need to work through this. That's one of the things that I don't want to just give you a drill and say, hey, this is all of a sudden going to make you a better player. I want you to be able to understand your faults. So if you've noticed on camera, okay, where your head dips, okay, so if you've noticed in your take away your backswing, your head goes down, then that is a byproduct of 2 things. Number 1, you haven't really shifted your weight properly over to your trail leg, okay? So you haven't made any sort of shift. You're going to notice that a lot of your weight kind of falls over to your left side here, or your lead side, and you're going to notice that there's a lot of tilt to my pelvis here, okay? If you've noticed that your head is diving down, then your chances are you haven't shifted your weight enough, or you've tried to turn your shoulder plane far too steeply. Okay, our goal here is that we want our shoulders to rotate perpendicular to our spine. Okay, we want our shoulders to be able to rotate perpendicular. We don't want to increase that angle, because again, that's going to cause your head to dip. And when your head starts to dip, that means your spine angle is starting to change, and then in your downswing, what's going to happen is it's going to start to try to compensate, or it's going to start to try to correct itself. And again, that's going to lead to inconsistencies. Now, the second fault here is vertical movement. Okay, so if you've noticed on camera, your head moves vertically. Now, what's that a signal of? What's that an indication of it that you've done wrong in your golf swing? Well, chances are, going back to what we talked about in the first part here with not transferring your weight, is that you haven't really stabilized your pelvis. You haven't really tried to maintain the flex in that trail leg. If your leg goes straight, okay, chances are what's going to happen here is your hips are going to come forward, your spine is going to move vertical, and in turn, now your head is moving up. That's very, very difficult now, because think of your spine as now being a carousel. If it goes up, then it's going to have to come back down to where it started for us to be able to get the bat on the ball. Now, the third one here is the most common one we see with a lot of amateur players, and that is excess lateral head movement. Okay, so if you've noticed on camera that your head moves way off the golf ball, then we need to work on making sure that it doesn't get too far off the ball here. Now, what's the cause of this? Well, very commonly we see people take this lead arm and this lead shoulder, okay, and they push the club back really hard. Okay, so you try to get a lot of momentum and a lot of inertia moving the club in this direction. And what that does is it starts to pull your body, starts to pull your head too far off the ball. And again, going back to that, we want to stay as centered as possible here so we don't have a lot of things that are going to create inconsistencies in the ball striking. So now that we've identified it here, okay, we've understand that downward movement is going to be a lack of weight shift, a lack of proper weight shift, or turning your shoulders too steeply. Vertical head movement is going to be attributed to, it can also be attributed to not shifting your weight properly, but it can also be attributed to you not loading your right leg up properly and maintaining the flex in that leg. And then lateral movement is going to be from a lead side push. Okay, so if you've struggled with any of those areas, then the drill that we're about to get into here is going to be really critical for you for the next 7 days. So let's go ahead and get into that drill now. Okay, so now here we are at the drill portion of this week's video, and we're going to be really focused on trying to get 1,000 reps. Okay, I know that sounds like a really mind-boggling number here, but again, a lot of these drills are going to be designed where you can do these right in the comforts of your own home. So the way this drill is going to work, I want you to go ahead and get into your setup position. Okay, if you haven't worked through getting into a correct anatomic, a correct biomechanically safe setup position, then I really encourage you to take a look at the Fixing Your Setup video. That video, I walk you through a step-by-step process on how to get your setup perfect every single time, just like those guys you see on TV. So again, if you haven't watched that video, definitely take a look at it. All right, so we're gonna get into our setup position here, okay? And what I want you to do is I want you to take the golf club, and I want you to have the club head over your trail shoulder here. And when we're gonna go ahead and cross our arms over our shoulders, okay? Try to get this set up so you can see properly. Now our goal here is two things. Number one, we need to be able to shift our weight, right? We talked a lot about that in the fault section is, that can be a big issue is people not shifting their weight properly. So in order to do that, what I want you to do is I want you to lift your right heel up off the ground, or your trail heel. Okay, so you pick that up, and your first move is to push it into the ground. And when I say push it in the ground, push it. Okay, don't just set it down, push it in the ground. Now why is that important? Well, that's important because that's going to tell us that you're shifting your weight. It's going to give you a signal that you have shifted your weight into that leg. Now the next big piece is I want you to take this club head and I want you to pull it towards your spine. So you're going to lift your right heel up, push it in the ground, and you're going to pull that club head in towards your spine. You're going to notice that you'll start to feel some engagement in your core, your midsection here. You'll see that by pulling that club head towards your center, that's going to allow you to be able to move very centered in your golf swing. Okay, so we talk a lot about push versus pull on the website here, but again, our most important part here is pulling towards center. So again, the drill is going to look like pick the heel up, push it into the ground, pull the club head towards your spine. Now there is one extremely, extremely important ingredient to this drill that you really need to stay focused on for these next 7 days. And what I'm going to turn down the line so you can see this here. So when I pick my heel up and I push it into the ground and I turn my body, so I'm going to pull that club head towards my spine, what I want you to notice is that I've maintained the flex in my right knee. I haven't allowed it to go straight and I haven't allowed it to rotate at all. Okay, so your goal is to make sure when you push your heel into the ground and you're pulling that club head towards center, you want to keep that trail knee flexed and facing forward. Okay, if you do this properly, you're going to start to feel the medial side of your glute right here on the outer part of your butt here start to contract and light up. Those are great muscles for stability in your pelvis. Okay, so again, let's walk through this drill. Right heel up, push it in the ground, knee stays flexed, pull the club head towards my center, okay? And I want you to do 300 reps. So your first 300 of the 1,000 reps are gonna be done just with the club across your chest. Once you've gotten 300 reps of that, I want you to go ahead and grab a golf club, but I want you to get the light end up. Okay, I don't want you to swing from the heavy end yet, because the minute we start having a lot of momentum and a lot of inertia in this club head, we're gonna lose kinesthetic awareness. So your next 300 reps are going to be done on this end. Now, to make this centered rotation, our focus point here is going to be taking our trail shoulder and pulling it directly towards our spine here. Okay, we're going to feel like we're pulling it directly behind our head. And that's going to allow your shoulders to rotate perpendicular to your spine. Okay? So again, once you have the light end down here, excuse me, you're going to pull your right shoulder towards your center here. Okay, and that's going to cause your golf club to move. I don't care where the hands and arms go in this drill. Chances are your hands and arms are very well trained. If your club is a little bit deep at the top, or your hands and arms are maybe you're a little bit across the line or a little bit laid off, we're going to get to that part. Okay, that's an important part, but that's in a later part of the video in this series. So again, your goal here is 300 reps with the club across your chest. The next 300 are going to be on the light end. Okay, The final 400 reps you can do on the heavy end. Now I want you to know this. If you notice on camera or mirror that you see some sort of head movement starting to pop in here that you don't want, then I really encourage you to take a step back, okay? So if you're on the heavy end, you're on those last 400 reps and you're really committed to getting these 1,000 reps and you're starting to see your head moving, then pull yourself back down and go to the light end. And if you're still having a problem, then go back down to where the club is across your chest. There's no point of racing through this process. Again, the goal here is to get a lot of that excess head movement so we can stay as centered as possible and load our takeaway and load our backswing up so that we can use our body properly for downswing and not have to worry about tons of moving parts. Okay, so there you have it, week number 1. We're gonna be working on getting that head to stay really quiet in your golf swing so that you can start to load your golf swing up properly and start to eliminate a lot of that excess moving body parts that are gonna make it very hard for us to get the bat on the ball. And I know I talked a little bit about that fixing your setup video in the midst of the drill. And if you haven't seen that video, I'm gonna go ahead and include a link in the description below. Okay, if you click that link in the description below, it's gonna take you over to our website where you can sign up for a free membership and you can watch that video for free in its entirety, no questions asked. All right, so make sure you click that link in the description below. Also, feel free to post up your results below. Okay, if you have any questions or comments along this way, I'll certainly help you out. That's a great way for us to keep it social. It's a great way for me to get my hands in there and really help you out and help you understand even further how to make this even more perfect. Also, do me a favor and click that thumbs up button down there for me. Also, remember to subscribe to our channel now. That way you get notifications for live series here where we're working on becoming much more consistent ball strikers. I hope you guys all had some great success over the last week working on trying to minimize some of that excess head movement that you had in your golf swing. I know it was kind of tough working through and trying to get 1,000 repetitions in of this, and it felt like we were starting to use some bigger muscles. So this week, I promise it's gonna be a lot easier on us, and we're gonna be really focusing in on tension. We're gonna really try to eliminate tension in the hands and the arms. That's a really critical area that a lot of amateur golfers tend to struggle with, is just carrying way too much tension. So the ultimate goal this week, it's not gonna be big movements, but I know we've got a good golf tournament on TV this weekend. It's something that you can do right in front of your TV. And it's a drill that I really strongly encourage you guys to try out because it's gonna segue into what we're gonna be doing next week in the week number 3 video. That's gonna really start to tie the head movement and then the tension. We're gonna start to add more moving parts to this, and you're gonna see that you're gonna start to hit the golf ball much more crisply and much more consistently. Okay guys, so as step 2 here, we're gonna be really focusing on shaking out a lot of that tension in your lead arm. So anything from our shoulder down to our fingertips, it's gonna be really critical that we spend as much time as we can over the next 7 days really focusing on getting the correct sensation of letting your arm and your wrist, your forearm, all of that stuff stay extremely relaxed because it's really critical for ball striking. Now, let's talk about this real quick about why we want to stay relaxed and why we want to allow the club to swing before we get into today's drill. Well, here's what I want you to know. The golf gods were really smart when they figured this all out. So when they designed the golf clubs, they figured that we should put the shaft down here at the hosel. So this is where the golf club connects here, and because it's on an angle and we're swinging on an inclined plane, inherently the golf club is designed to rotate. Okay, so what a lot of amateur golfers tend to struggle with is that they're squeezing or manhandling the club so much that it doesn't want to rotate, it doesn't want to square itself back up, and then in turn it makes for erratic ball striking. So that's why tension or releasing tension from your lead wrist, your lead forearm is extremely critical to allow the club head to do what it's designed to do, and that's rotate and square itself back up. Now, here's a little simple drill for you guys to focus on this week. I want you to go ahead and grab 2 clubs. So I've got my 9 iron, my 6 iron here today. You can do it with a 7 and 8 iron, that's fine. I want you to go ahead and grab both clubs. We're gonna stand with our feet together. Okay, I got my hips back. Okay, my chest is gonna be over the ball, so I'm still trying to maintain my golf posture. And what we're gonna be doing here is we're gonna be swinging from hip high to hip high and just making our arm feel really relaxed, okay? So no big tension by squeezing these grips or anything like that. Just want you to swing your arm back and forth. Okay, and what you're gonna start to feel, because we've got 2 clubs and it's heavy, you're gonna start to feel the weight of the club. You're gonna start to feel the weight of the club head here. Okay, you're gonna feel like it wants to swing on its own. And what it's actually causing my wrist to do here is that you can see that my wrist is starting to rotate without me having to do or having to think anything about it. Okay, so I want you to do several reps with 2 clubs. Okay, I don't want you to feel like you're pulling your arm, just let it swing very naturally here. Okay, you can see how I'm trying to keep it evenly paced on both sides of my body here. You'll start to feel the club heads gaining momentum or maximum speed right at the bottom of the swing arc. Once you have that correct sensation, put one of the clubs down. You're gonna go back to with your feet together here, okay? And you're still gonna make the same movements. Now, what I want you to focus on when you have one club is I want you just to feel like you're holding the club in the back 2 fingers of your lead hand. So the back 2 fingers here are gonna be really where my pressure is in my grip. I don't wanna be pushing on the shaft with the thumb. That's gonna make the club come down really steep here. So I just wanna feel like I'm holding it in those back 2 fingers. And you can see that because I'm just swinging my arm back and forth, I'm getting the golf club to bottom out in the same exact spot every single rep. Okay, so once you've really gotten out of the way and allowed the club to do what it's designed to do, you're gonna notice that you can get the club head to bottom out in that same piece of carpet or wherever you're practicing. And that is telling you that you are now allowing the club to do what it's designed to do. So it's you getting out of the way of it. Okay, so make sure you spend a lot of time with 2 clubs in your hand. I know we've got that great golf tournament to watch this weekend. This is something you can do right in front of your TV. Just don't tear your carpet up, because I don't want your loved ones calling me, being like, why the heck is my loved one tearing my carpet up? But just make sure that your goal this week is to eliminate tension and try to feel the weight of the club. I don't want you to actively feel like you're having to flip your wrist over. Allow the club head to rotate on its own, and you're gonna start to see that, hey, I've got more control of this club face than I ever thought I would. And this is gonna be a great segue for us into video number 3, where we're gonna start to ramp things back up. We're gonna start to add some more moving parts to this, and you're gonna see that you have way more compression on the golf ball. Okay guys, so there you have it. Weeks number 1 and number 2. Worked on stabilizing the head. Now we're working on releasing tension from the arm. These 2 things are gonna be really critical for us to have in place before we move into next week's video. So I strongly encourage you guys really spend a good amount of time working on shaking out that tension out of that lead arm and start to get the club to bottom out in the same spot every single time. You can't do enough reps of this, okay? So when you get a free chance, make sure you're spending a good amount of time, or start with 2 clubs, then go down to 1 club and really start to feel the club head swinging, get it to bottom out in the same spot, and we're gonna be rocking and rolling into week number 3. Also, do me a favor, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post those up below. I'll help you out as best I can here. Also, do me a big favor and click that like button down there for me below. And if you have not already subscribed to our channel, go ahead and do so now by clicking on this button on my hand. And that way you get notification when video number 3 is coming out, or any of the other new content. All right guys, good luck this week. I hope we have a fun and exciting tournament to watch this weekend. Spend some time shaking out that tension. Hey Rotary Swing golfers, welcome back to week number 3 of the Playing the Best Golf of Your Life in 6-week series. First off, I want to start off by apologizing that we didn't get week number 3 video out on time. We had a little bit of a production error in that video. We had some mic issues as well, so we wanted to be able to circle back, redo that video, and make sure that you got some really high quality content here so that you can start to progress your way into playing some of your best golf. So I know the first couple weeks we talked about, number 1, we were working on making sure that we didn't have a lot of big time head movement, also working on loading up our trail leg and maintaining our spine angle while we rotate our body. And number 2, we worked on really shaking out the tension in the arms. Now this week, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be working on adding weight shift, okay, to a centered off body position, and we're gonna be working on controlling the bottom of the swing arc. Now, what does that mean to control the bottom of the swing arc? Well, why are golf professionals so good day after day with their ball striking? Well, they get the golf club to bottom out in the same spot pretty much every single time with their irons. That's a really critical part to good, consistent ball striking, is getting the golf club to bottom out, or knowing where it's gonna bottom out every single time. So that's what we're gonna be focusing on this week, is getting the club, allowing our body to feel like it has some movement in it to help us create some momentum, help us create some of that speed, but also get the club to bottom out in that same spot for good, consistent ball striking. So let's go ahead and take a look at that drill now, and we'll start to lay out a rep range for you, and then we'll start to talk about what we're gonna be doing in week number 4. Okay guys, so the way I've got this drill set up this week is we're gonna be focusing in on adding weight transfer and getting the club to bottom out in the same spot every single time. So if you're having a hard time with this and you're really starting to lose some of the stuff that we talked about in video number 2, I would suggest that we circle back to that, really work on eliminating some of that tension in the arm, because it's gonna be really critical for us to be able to get the club to bottom out and not really feel like we're manhandling the club here. So what I've done is I've grabbed 3 golf balls. Okay, and this is something you can do right at your house. And these first 2 balls that are closest to me are gonna indicate my stance width. Now I've got the ball just on the inside of my toe here on both sides here. Okay, and that's just gonna be a representation of my stance width. And this is gonna make sense to you here in just a second. And what I want you to know here is that we're gonna be setting up about 2 inches outside of neutral joint alignment on both sides. And if you're unclear as to why we suggest that you set up 2 inches outside of neutral joint alignment, or what the heck that even means, then I've got a great video that's in the link in the description below. You can go ahead and click that video. We'll talk about the importance of determining how to get proper stance width based off of neutral joint alignment and not worrying about shoulder width apart, which is something that we've always heard through golf instruction. So, all right, so we're gonna be 2 inches outside of neutral joint alignment here on both sides, okay? And this third ball is gonna be a representation of where I want the golf club to bottom out. Okay, now how did I determine where this ball is gonna be? So here's what I want you to do is I want you to set up about 50-50, okay? Both arms are gonna be hanging relaxed, so 50% of my weight in my right leg, 50% of my weight in my left leg. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep my arms and my head really still, and I'm gonna shift my weight over to my left side by rolling to the inside part of my right ankle here. Okay, so now what I want you to notice here is because my arms are gonna be hanging freely, you see how my club moved forward a little bit here? This is where the golf club would be bottoming out. This is the lowest point of the golf swing here. Okay, so that's where the golf club is on its last point down and its first point up. So we want to understand that that's the bottom of the swing arc because I've shifted my weight left, both my arms are relaxed, okay, and they're in a straight position. Now normally, because we want to hit the golf ball, we want to hit down on the golf ball to help compress it, we would want the ball just behind the bottom of the swing arc. Okay, so you can see that this is where my bottom would be, so my ball position would be right here. Now, the reason why I have this ball up in the position where the bottom of the arc is it's just an indicator, okay? It's just for you to have a little piece of notification if you're getting the club to bottom out in the same spot. So again, the way this drill is gonna work, all right, was we're gonna set up, we're gonna have our left arm hanging freely, okay, our lead arm, and we're gonna go ahead and move our lead foot in towards our right, and we're gonna swing the club back to about hip high. Okay, so now, what I want you to try and focus on here is we're gonna step back out, okay? So you can see that I'm back into my proper stance width, and at that point, I'm just gonna let the arm fall and release. Okay, so I pull it back in, hip high, step out, head still. You can see that that club bottomed out in a pretty good spot there. Step out, let the arm fall and release. Okay, that club bottomed out in a pretty good spot. Step out, okay? Once you get 20 of these in a row, then you can start to increase the amount of width to this swing. So we're gonna start out with going hip high. Now we're gonna go back to about shoulder height. Okay, so we're gonna pull our foot in, we're gonna shift our weight, and the arm is gonna fall and release. Now if you notice that your club's coming down a little bit on the steeper side, chances are you're allowing your head to move a little bit too much. So once you step out, I want you to hold your head really still. Okay? And what that'll do is it's gonna help you create some secondary axis tilt, which is just simply the spine leaning back, which helps shallow the golf swing out. Once you get 20 of those in a row, then I want you to go a little bit further. You're gonna almost go into almost a full swing mode here. So we're gonna step out, let the arm fall and release. Once you get 20 of those in a row, then start the process over the next day. I want you guys to work on this at least 5 out of 7 days. If you can't get 20 in a row, don't worry about it. Circle back to video number 2, start to work on tension, and then come back to this video and you'll start to see that, okay, now I'm adding weight shift, I'm eliminating that tension in the arm, I'm stepping out, the arm is swinging, and the golf club will bottom out in the same spot every single time. All right, guys, so I wish you guys the best of luck this week. Good luck. Post up in the comments below if you have any sorts of questions on this particular drill. This is gonna be mission critical to make sure we get this down before we start talking in video number 4 about how to maintain spine angle through the hitting area properly so you don't have any early extension of the spine. Good luck, guys. Let's make it a great day. We'll see you next time. Welcome back to week number 4 of the Best Golf of Your Life series, brought to you in part by RotarySwing.com. I'm your instructor, Chris Tyler, and this week we're going to be adding one more moving piece to our ball striking that's going to allow us to become a much more consistent ball striker. We're going to be focusing in on how important it is to keep your eyes very quiet at the release point of the golf swing. So over the first few weeks, what we focused on was, in week number 1, we wanted to minimize a lot of that additional head movement or excess head movement that you may have had in your takeaway or your backswing. In week number 2, we worked on shaking out a lot of that tension that you may have had in your wrists, your forearms. And then in week number 3, which is a really critical week, we worked on controlling the bottom of the swing arc and adding weight transfer to help get the golf club to bottom out in the same spot every single time. So this week, what we're gonna be focusing in on is we're gonna be keeping our legs stationary. We're gonna get into proper stance width, and I want you to go ahead and get a ball in its normal position here, just off the left ear, just like we talked about in last week's video. We're not gonna be hitting this golf ball unless you're gonna be out at a range or whatnot, but I'm gonna have this golf ball positioned right up off my left ear. And what I wanna do here now is we're gonna tie all these pieces together. We're gonna make sure when we start our move, we're gonna pick our right heel up, okay? And and we're gonna push it in the ground, and we're gonna turn our body all the way to the top of the golf swing. Okay, so I'm gonna stop at this point, okay, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shift my weight over to my left heel. Okay, so you're gonna see that my head moves back into its original position. I'm gonna shift so I've got about 85% of my weight in my left heel right here. And then at this point, what I'm gonna do is I am going to now focus my left eye right directly on the back of the golf ball, and I'm going to leave it there until I feel my hands and arms reach up to about belt height when it passes impact here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and load to the top. So I'm gonna pick my right heel up, okay, turn my body to the top, okay. I'm gonna shift my weight left, so I gotta feel about 80% of my weight in my left heel, left ankle. I'm gonna focus my left eye on the back of the golf ball, and I'm gonna let the club release. Now, the reason why I have this ball out here, number one, I'm gonna get you comfortable, it's gonna give you a reference point. And number two, we're gonna be looking for the club to still bottom out just in front of this golf ball, just like we worked on last week. Again, so the way this drill is gonna work, right heel up, push it in the ground, turn your body, transfer your weight over to your left heel. All right, and then once your weight's over your left heel, you're gonna focus your left eye right on the back of the golf ball, push your left heel in the ground, and let the club release, and keep your eye focused back here on the golf ball until your hands reach belt height. I want you to do 1,000 repetitions of this exact move. Start very slowly and start to get yourself up to speed by probably the 800th, 900th rep or so. You wanna start to almost feel like you're at full speed. And then in turn, you're gonna be ready for next week's video. So let's go through this just one more time for you guys. Ball position is gonna be up off my left ear. Okay, we'll pick my right heel up, push it in the ground, keep my right leg flexed. Okay, I'm gonna shift my weight over to my left side. Left eye is gonna stay focused on the back of the golf ball. Push the left heel on the ground, let the club release in front of our body, no tension. Now, for those of you people that have been battling with maybe a chicken wing or maybe a flip, you've got a different set of homework this week. What you're gonna be focusing on is when you shift your weight left, okay, and you're focusing your left eye on the back of the golf ball, and you're letting the club release, your right hand is gonna be coming off the golf club at impact, and it's not gonna be passing impact. Okay, so you're gonna do 1,000 reps with your right hand coming off the golf club right at impact, okay? If you've been struggling with a flip or a chicken wing, those are what you're gonna be focusing on this week. Your right hand must come off the golf club. And then next week, what we're gonna start to do is we're gonna start to ramp our speed up. We're gonna start working on controlling our starting line. I'm gonna have Flight Scope out here so we're gonna start tracking some of the data, start tracking our speed, start tracking the path of the club, and then the face to path. And you're gonna see that we're gonna get well on our way to playing some really good, consistent golf. Okay guys, so there you have it. Week number 4 in the books, or gonna be soon to be in the books before next week. I hope you guys have some great success with it this week. Work on really staying focused on making sure that if you've been chicken winging it or flipping the golf club with the right hand, to get that right hand to come off at impact, keep those eyes extremely quiet. And you're gonna see that when we start getting into the drills next week, you're gonna start to see some really good results with your ball striking if you get a chance to go out to the range or the golf course. Also, I wanna let you guys know, if you're having an issue with moving your weight into your lead side, I never really had a good solution on how to do that perfectly. I got a great video that's one of our members' favorites. It's called Sitting into the Left Side. It's actually a video and a drill that I used with one of my students today that was absolutely perfect for us to be able to unload our body properly. If you want to see that video in its entirety, then you can go ahead and click the link in the description below, or I'm going to show you a preview of that video at the end of here. Just go ahead and click on that video. It'll take you over to our website where you can sign up for a free membership, no questions asked. You watch that video in its entirety and it'll certainly get you well on your way to moving your weight into your lead side properly. Also, do me a favor, click that like button below. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post those below and I'll help you out as best. Hey Rotary Spin golfers, welcome back to week number 5 of the 6-week video series, Playing the Best Golf of Your Life. I hope everybody's had some great success over these first 4 weeks. And this week we're gonna be talking about the importance of controlling your starting line and how the position of your spine at impact can ultimately affect the path that your club is on. So those of you players that have been battling with possibly some early extension in your golf swing, you wanna pay close attention to today's video. So in part 1 of today's video, I'm gonna be talking more about the cause and effects. I'm gonna be showing you with Flight Scope today on how it can actually shift the path around and change the way the club face is being delivered into the golf ball. And in part 2 of this video, I'm gonna show you a really simple drill that a necktie can help you overcome that nagging swing fault of early extension. Let's go ahead and get started now. Okay guys, so in part 1 of this video, like I said, we want to talk about the cause and effect relationship of what it means to have a plane shift or not being able to control your starting line. And let's talk about why it's important to be able to control your starting line and what that actually means. Well, typically we want to have our path is zeroed out as much as possible through the hitting area. We don't want to be too far from the inside, 5, 6, 7 degrees. We don't want to be too far from the outside. We want to be as close to being zeroed out as possible. And that's going to allow us, when we start to have good control of the club face, to be able to shape the golf ball as we want. But again, tour players are typically right around 0, maybe up to a degree, one way or the other, as far as their path is concerned. And the path that your golf ball or your club is being delivered on ultimately affects the way that you release the club. So for those players that have been battling with early extension, let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. So when you get up to the top of your swing, okay, and you start to drive really hard off of the trail leg here, you can see what that does. It brings my hips forward, it makes my spine go really vertical, and if you watch what it does to the shaft plane here, okay, you can see that it starts to flatten it quite a bit. Now, what's happening here is now the club is going to be starting to come in more from the inside. Also, one thing that I want you to remember is that when we start to have a plane shift, we have a lot of momentum and a lot of inertia pulling us down and behind us here. And we're not strong enough in our lead wrist to be able to supinate the golf club on our own. So now we're putting the right hand in the driver's seat, which can cause you to either hit a big old flip or you can squeeze your release at the bottom and hit a block. So our goal today is to be able to get the golf club on a good path coming down. That way we start to understand how we can control the starting line, get the club on a good path, and then we can start to control our release. So now let's talk about the cause of this. I said it before, you can see that as I start to work down in my downswing, I'm driving very hard off of my right leg here. Okay, so that's going to be typically the cause. And what this does is it causes your hips to come forward, it causes your body to spin open just a fraction here. And in turn, now you're starting to have to shift your plane around. And then in turn, you're going to have the effect of having a much more in to out path than you want, making it very hard for you to zero things out, and then you're having to save things with your hands. So now we understand the cause and effect relationship to this. Also, I want you to note that the position of your spine from a face-on perspective, okay, you don't want to have too much secondary axis tilt down in the hitting area. That's, again, going to shallow the plane. And for those of you players that are typically over the top, you're going to notice that your spine would be much more vertical. So I'm going to go ahead and hit a shot here with FlightScope, being able to track the data. I'm going to show you guys the effects of this. And what I'm going to be trying to do here is I'm going to try to drive hard off my right leg, and we're going to see how far in to out we are. Okay. So it showed me there I had 7 degrees into out, and then I had to close my club face 5 degrees to be able to balance that back out. That's very hard to control in the golf course. So now you can understand the cause and effects to this. So now what we're going to do in part 2 of this video is I'm going to show you a simple little drill here that's going to help you overcome this once and for all. Okay guys, so here we are with a drill for this week that we're going to be focusing in on how to alleviate some of that early extension that you might be battling with in your golf swing. And I've got ahead and got a simple necktie here. I've obviously picked out some pretty wildly clashing colors here, pink on purple. So don't make fun of me at home, but it gives you some good contrast here so you can see what I'm doing. And what I've done here is I've gone ahead and tied just a normal standard knot. And what I want you to do is I want you to be able to adjust your knot based off of your setup position and based off the club that you're going to be hitting. Today I'm going to be hitting a 7-iron. So that when you're in your setup position, the knot is the only thing that's touching your chest. I don't want you to have any part of the tie below the knot laying down the front of your chest here. So the goal here is at your setup position, when you're in your golf posture, and you can see here the wind's blowing a little bit right now, this is the only thing that I can feel touching against my chest, nothing down below it. Now our goal, okay, when we're making our golf swings, after we've shifted our weight to the left, is to not allow anything below the knot to start to drape against our belly here. Okay, we want to keep that completely away from it. Only thing we want to have here is just the knot. And you're going to see that because we're not pushing off of our trail thigh, where the tie would be pushed against our chest here, you're going to see that it's much easier to alleviate a lot of that early extension. So I want you guys to do, probably right in the ballpark of 500 reps of this without any golf balls. If you're not going to the range during this process, that's perfectly fine. You can do all 1,000 reps over the week with working on just trying to make sure when you're shifting your weight left, you're going to try to keep that tie down off of your belly. Only thing touching here is just the knot to your chest. So I want you to do lots and lots of reps of that. Okay, so make sure you're shifting left, just like we talked about last week. And your goal is to keep that knot the only thing touching your chest, and you'll see that you'll overcome a lot of that early extension. So let's go ahead and give it a try here now. See if we can get FlightScope to pick up our data and see if we can zero out our path a little bit better here. Okay, so I need to adjust this just a little bit. Okay, so the knot's the only thing touching my chest. Okay, let's see how we did there. All right, so 1.2 on my path into out there. So much better results by trying to keep the tie off of my chest. That's just giving you a proper feel of what it's like to be able to keep your chest down, your hips back, so that you can start to get your club on a good path and start to be able to control your starting line. Okay guys, so there you have it, week number 5. We're gonna be working on eliminating a lot of that early extension. I wish you guys some great success with this drill. I know it was a little difficult for me to be able to perform the drill at full speed with the wind really whipping up here and pushing the tie against me. But it might be better for you guys to do it in a closed environment. That way you get the correct sensation on how it's like to keep your hips back, keep your chest more over the golf ball, and you'll see that your club's gonna be on a much better path. So always feel free to post up your comments below. If you have any questions, feel free to post those up as well. I'll help you out as best I can along the way. Also, do me a favor and click that like button down there for me. I also want to let you guys know we have a great premium video on the website called The Roll of the Right Foot in the Downswing. It's one of our members' favorites, and again, it's a video that I use from a private instructional standpoint quite a bit that teaches those players how to use their trail foot in their golf swing as a brake so that we can start to eliminate a lot of that early extension, a lot of that spinning out problems, and also start to increase your club head speed. So if you want to see that video in its entirety, then go ahead and click the link in the description below, or you can go ahead and click on the preview of the video that I'm going to show you here at the end. It's going to take you over to our website, sign up for a free membership. You can watch that video in its entirety free, no questions asked. All right guys, so 1,000 reps this week, tie drill. Make sure you get it in a good spot. Really focus on what it's like to not have your hips coming forward, and you'll start to see that you're going to get your club on the Best Golf of Your Life series, video number 6. I'm your instructor, Chris Tyler. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to get some good extension into your finish position. I know a lot of amateur golfers tend to struggle with getting that dreaded chicken wing look, and they tend to have a lot of extra body rotation down in the hitting area, which in turn can start to cause erratic ball striking, can make your release a little bit late. So I want to spend a few minutes just kind of recapping some of the stuff that we've already covered over the first 5 weeks. Video number 1, we were talking about minimizing that head movement, trying to get a little bit more centered in your golf swing. That way you start to eliminate a lot of moving parts that are going to affect bad ball striking. Also, we've discussed early extension of the spine. We've discussed how to shake out tension with your hands and your arms. So the way this video series is designed is that if you ever start to develop some of these faults in your golf swing, you can always circle back to any of these videos at any particular time, revisit the drills, spend a lot of time going through those repetitions over that next week or so, and then you'll start to shake out some of that bad stuff and start playing some of your good golf again. Okay, so the drill this week to help kind of tie it all together is how we're going to create proper extension. I know in some of the previous weeks we talked about how to control the bottom of the swing arc and getting the club to bottom out in the same spot every single time. Now what we're going to be talking about is what we're going to do after impact here. And a lot of people are like, well, Chris, why does that even matter? The golf ball's already gone. Well, things that happen post-impact are ways for us to reverse diagnose things that are going on in the golf swing. So if you do see yourself getting that dreaded chicken wing look, why is this happening? Well, let's talk about that for a second here. So if you were to have both hands directly out in front of you, and you were to push your lead arm across your center, keep pushing, 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 what's your trail arm going to eventually do here? Okay, it's going to break. I'm sorry, this would be my lead arm on my left side. Pushing my trail arm across my center, you can see that my arm starts to break. So we can understand that if you're battling with too much of that right side dominance down there, we can figure out ways to give you drills so that post-impact you don't have that particular chicken wing look. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking for when you shift your weight over to your left side and you get things nice and stacked up. We've talked about the left shoulder, left hip socket, left knee, and left ankle being right stacked on top of each other. Now what I want you to do when you're releasing the club and your wrists and forearms are extending out in front of you is I want you to keep the buttons on your shirt behind your belt buckle. If you notice that your buttons are getting on top of your belt buckle or in front of your belt buckle, that's when you're going to start to use too much of the trail side of your body. So let's show you what that looks like here. And I start to push really hard. You can see now my buttons are really stacked up on top of my belt buckle here. So my goal now is what I'm going to do here is after I get my left side stacked up, I'm going to keep my buttons back, keep my head back, and I'm gonna allow the club to pull me up into a finish. But I wanna keep my buttons back as long as humanly possible. So let's show you again here in slow motion. So shift left side of the body stacked up, keep my buttons back. You're gonna notice that my shoulder plane is gonna start to steepen quite a bit. That's gonna help hold the hands and arms out in front of the body. So let me show you from this angle here. Shift left, so keep my buttons back. You can notice that my shoulder plane starts to steepen a little bit. This is a great way to start to develop some good extension in your golf swing. Also helps the club stay on a good path. That's gonna help you start keeping the ball more on target more often. Okay guys, so that's video number